Well, it's probably not too surprising that a minister whose favorite characters in the Christmas nativity are the Magi would choose the characters conversing on the road to Emmaus to celebrate Easter. There might have been a more obvious choice for Unitarian Universalists, like the story of doubting Thomas, the skeptic disciple who needed the personal experience of seeing and feeling the wounds of the crucified Jesus before accepting the resurrection. But proving the bodily resurrection of Jesus is not my goal this morning. I've never experienced resurrection as physical resuscitation, nor do I want to. I doubt if you have or want to either. Now, what appeals to me about the road to Emmaus is the metaphor, life as a journey before death, and what we are called to be and to do on this journey. The two people on the road to Emmaus were not the closest disciples of Jesus. One is named Cleopas. We never hear of him in any of the stories of Jesus before the road to Emmaus. He is not part of Western art depicting the Last Supper, and we never hear of him after this encounter. And the other person on the road to Emmaus is unnamed. This led some scholars to speculate that she was the wife of Cleopas. So these two travelers are essentially every man and every woman. They are talking while making their way home from Jerusalem. Unlike E.E. Cummings, Luke does not tell us whether or not they passed leaping green leaf spirits of trees, or whether a true blue dream of sky was above them. For what they are feeling is not gratitude, but grief. Luke describes how they stood still and were sad. They are discussing the headline news of their day, news that affected them personally. They could be the loved ones of the missing Malaysian jet, or the parents of the missing students on the capsized Korean ferry. They could be any one of us who has experienced the untimely death of a loved one. We all know the empty place in our souls feels much like an empty tomb. They could be any one of us who are in despair and seeking hope, who have encountered a dead end and are seeking a new path. The two on the road to Emmaus had thought that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah, the one who was going to establish a kingdom of radical equality. He ate and drank with those who were outcasts. He modeled that everyone is deserving of God's love, and he had been crucified, an unjust, cruel death. Those of us who lived through the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy, Harvey Milk, John Lennon, David Gunn, George Tiller, to name a few. We know what it's like when someone appears whose message we feel offers hope, who touches and inspires us with new ways of living, and whose life is cut short by forces of hate and bigotry. Just last week in Kansas, Dr. William Lewis Corporon, his 14-year-old grandson Reed, and 53-year-old Terry Romano were gunned down at a Jewish community center by the hate and bigotry of a white supremacist. So what are we to make of the death of one Jewish teacher 2 millennia ago in a world where we hear daily of violence, death, and injustice? Luke tells us a stranger approaches the two people on the road to Emmaus. This is how the third person is described, as a stranger. The two on the road to Emmaus are surprised that the stranger has not heard the news of the death of Jesus, whom they describe as a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. The stranger listens to the memories of the two travelers on the road to Emmaus, of one who exemplified that if the world were the way it was intended, There would be no distinctions between Gentile and Jew, male or female, slave and free, rich or poor. No barriers between the holy and humanity. No barriers between humans themselves. And somehow, in that listening, trust is forged. The two travelers invite the stranger to stay the evening with them. We too know this to be true about life after death, how we fill the emptiness with stories and memories. The telling and retelling creates a different presence which will live with us for all of our lives. Spencer Reese writes about this in his poem, The Road to Emmaus. He describes going to speak with Sister Anne, a spiritual director. She interviews him, and he says how much of life is an interview. He had come to speak with her about a dead friend, Darrell, who had taught him what? To live, not to wince in the mirror. Reese writes, I spoke urgently, not wanting to forget some fact, but much I knew I would forget, or remember in a way my own, which would not exactly be correct. No, not exactly. Darrell was dead, I said, and I needed to make sense of things. The two people on the road to Emmaus needed to make sense of things. No alleluias until Easter. Shh, the alleluias are sleeping. It was only after the stranger took bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to them that they realized who the stranger was. Or in Cummings' words, now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. And in that moment, the stranger vanishes. Cleopas and his companion realized that what they had known and loved, the radical hospitality and love of Jesus, lived on with and within them. The sense Spencer Reese ultimately made of Darrell's death is, all I know now is the more he loved me, the more I loved the world. The biblical narratives about resurrection are not about resuscitation. They are about love. It was only those who had known and loved Jesus who experienced his presence after his death. On the road to Emmaus, for Cleopas and his companion, the story was over. They were defeated, devoid of hope, numb, locked up with their own concerns, until a stranger listened to them. They were even skeptical of the women who had seen a vision of angels at the empty tomb. All they felt was Cummings' no of all nothing. According to the stranger, they were slow of heart to believe. They were slow of heart to believe that love is stronger than death, that memory is a form of immortality, and that life is yes, and the gay, great happening, unlimitably earth. For ultimately, the metaphor of the road to Emmaus is about radical hospitality. Cleopas and his companion engage the stranger in conversation. They express concern for him when he appears to be traveling beyond their stopping point. The day is over, they insist. It's getting dark. Come eat with us and rest. And in so doing, they pay forward what Jesus had taught them about radical love and radical hospitality. What he had taught about loving God, or loving life, loving yes, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and loving your neighbor as yourself. Dorothy Soel highlighted the importance of radical hospitality in her song, On the Road to Emmaus. We have been walking away from the city of our hope. We have lost hope and despaired, But then we met someone who shared his bread with us, who showed us the new water, and then the eyes of our eyes opened. I am the water. You are the water. He is the water. She is the water. Whatever our theological self-identification, theist, agnostic, atheist, humanist, Jew, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, this is our story. We are the ones who welcome the stranger, invite one another to break bread, pour the wine, or here on Sunday mornings, pour the coffee. Treat one another tenderly, and speak and work for a world made fair with all her people one. The walk on the road to Emmaus never happened as a historical event. The walk on the road to Emmaus as metaphor, as parable, as a universal human hope and possibility happens every day. I was recently reminded of this in a prose poem by Naomi Shihab Nye. No one dies in this prose poem. The resurrected Jesus does not appear. Scriptures are not referenced. But Nye's poem about a literal journey she made is about how feeling forsaken is not the same thing as being forsaken. Loss doesn't win. Love wins. Her journey is about the resurrection of the spirit from despair to hope, from fear to trust, from brokenness to wholeness, through care for the stranger, through radical hospitality. We close with Nye's poem, Gate A4. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, after learning my flight had been delayed by 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing loudly. "Help," said the flight service person. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke to her haltingly. "Shudua shubidevok habibiti stani shwe min fadlik shubitsui." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, "No, we're fine. You'll get there. Just later. Who is picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son, and I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and would ride next to her, Southwest. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic, and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. And then I thought, well, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up about 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling about her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled out a sack of homemade mamou cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts out of her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. And to my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free beverages from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving us all apple juice. And they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones, and I thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. Like the women at the empty tomb, Naomi Shihab-Nye is right. Not everything is lost. Not on the road to Emmaus, not on our journey through time, not on our journey through time together, not on our journey through time together when our love for one another leads us to love the world more, to choose most love. Or in the words of the Unitarian poet E. E. Cummings, love is the every, only God who spoke this earth so glad and big. In affirmation of this, and for those who miss singing and hearing the traditional hymns of Easter, we close by rising in body or in spirit to sing a rousing rendition of hymn number 268. Be advised that since we're Unitarian Universalists, the tune is familiar, but the lyrics have been slightly altered. So this is not the same hymn being sung at other Methodist churches in Towson. Hymn 268. My Easter hope for all of us is that we will be awake to the possibility of the divine in our lives. Let us be prepared to meet the holy on our individual roads, in the unfolding of a flower, in the faces of our children, in the touch of a friend, in a conversation with a stranger, in beloved community, and in the most common moments of our day. For to do so truly is to have the life that has no end. Alleluia and amen. Happy Easter. Go now in peace and in love.